Okay, I did not expect to make a video today, but after reading this New York Times article, I felt I needed to speak up. And whenever I'm inspired, I usually do audio, and in this case, video. So the New York Times did another article on UFOs about the new Pentagon effort that we spoke about on the last live show. And I'll go over some of that stuff again for people who missed it. Whenever I do live, I feel like I'm rushing because I feel like people have taken their time to watch live, so I need to get to the point. With this one, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to take my time a little bit. So I'm going to go over some of the same material, but I'll start off early on. I have some new information, which is relevant to this article and what we've been talking about for the past few weeks. Anyway, the New York Times has done some great articles since 2017, but only when Leslie Kane, Ralph Blumenthal, and Helene Cooper write them, or just Ralph and Leslie. But then you have Julian Barnes, and when he does a UFO article recently, it's usually not good, and you'll see. So I'll read. I also have some videos, which will be a little clunky getting in and out, but it's definitely, you need to watch them to see why I feel the way I do, and I'm sure some other folks already know what I'm going to talk about. Anyway, so here's the article. The Pentagon forms a group to examine unexplained aerial sightings. The announcement follows a report that failed to clarify strange phenomena observed by military pilots and others over the past 2 decades. So move this around a little bit so I'm not so off-centered reading. Here's a picture, and it says the new group overseen by the military and the intelligence agencies will focus on special use airspace, which includes military operations areas. And so basically they're focusing on one specific area. I know I've complained about that, and other people have too, but I mean, that's fine if they, to start out, that's where they're focusing. Obviously there are sightings everywhere, but in the 180-day DNI report, it said a lot of the reports are coming from, sensitive areas, because that's where we have most of our sensors. We have our F-18s, maybe we have our satellites pointed there. So that's why you're seeing more of those sightings, encounters picked up on various sensors. Of course, we all know these things happen all over the world and not just in sensitive military airspace. So this is by Julian Barnes, published on the 24th, updated on the 25th. He says, Washington, the Pentagon on Tuesday night announced a new group to investigate reports of unidentified aerial phenomena in sensitive areas, work that will be overseen by both the military and the intelligence agencies. And by the way, I know you can't ask me questions here, but I'll make sure I will try to do at least an hour a week where I'll just go live and you guys ask whatever questions you want. Anything. Doesn't have to be UFOs. Could be about my personal life. If you're curious, go ahead and ask. I'm an open book. So he continues. The group will lead an effort to, quote, detect, identify, and attribute objects, unquote, in restricted airspace, as well as mitigate any threats to military flights. Fine with that. And it's threats because, we're talking about the Pentagon here. If you want something to examine what this means existentially for humanity, we need to go outside of the government, which Elizondo has spoken about before. The announcement follows the release of a report in June that failed to provide explanations of 143 sightings of strange phenomena by military pilots and others over the past 2 decades. And we know it was 144 sightings they looked at. One of them was a balloon. The other 143 were unexplained. That report frustrated some inside the intelligence community who believed more analysis and research should have been done to try to categorize and explain the phenomena. We know at least 2 of those people are Luis Elizondo and Christopher Mellon. Releasing a report that said the sightings were unexplained further drove theories that the videos or pictures could be visitors from space, a theory that few in the U.S. government take seriously. I don't know what he means by few, but I'm pretty confident there are people in the US government that take it very seriously, even though they don't speak about it publicly. I would think the majority don't, or they don't know about the data, or they don't even want to look at the data. And yeah, they don't take it seriously. But I think it may be a little more than what he's insinuating in that paragraph. Kathleen H. Hicks, the Deputy Defense Secretary, said the new group would be called the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, the worst acronym in government history. It will be overseen by an executive council made up of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, the Director of the Joint Staff, and senior officials from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The group will focus on special use airspace, which includes military operations areas. By the way, that's fine. The group will be overseen by an executive council, the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, the Director of the Joint Staff. These are senior people, and senior officials from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That's great. If we didn't have the Gillibrand Amendment, which we can go over later. The group will focus on special use airspace, which includes military operations areas, firing ranges, and places restricted for national security and other uses. In a memo, Dr. Hicks said unidentified aerial phenomena in special use areas represented a potential safety issue for military pilots and raised potential national security concerns. I do not disagree with that. That's the basic thing that UFOs represent. At the very basic level, it's a safety flight issue for our military pilots and for civilian pilots. And depending on what they are, no matter what they are, there's potential national security concerns. Even if it did turn out it was Russia and China, that's national security. That's a national security concern. And if it turned out to be reptilians or whoever with an intent that we don't know about, that's a potential national security concern. In June, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a report that reviewed unidentified aerial phenomena seen since 2004, noting that 144 remained unexplained. Of those 21 reports involving 18 episodes, of those 21 reports involving 18 episodes possibly demonstrated technological know-how unknown to the United States, such as objects moving without observable propulsion or with rapid acceleration that is believed to be beyond the capabilities of Russia, China, or other terrestrial nations. He goes on, there's a grab from the gimbal video. And he left out one thing. If I can pull it up, so I don't want to. Yeah, he left out one thing where he's talking about how many exhibited some of those exotic maneuvers. He did not say, unless he says later on, he says of the 144 reports, 143, because one was explained, 80 of those reports involved observation with multiple sensors. So basically, it shows those are physical objects. That's what the report said. And then it said after, in 18 incidents described in 21 reports, observers reported unusual UAP movement patterns or flight characteristics. I assume one of those is contained within the 23-minute video that Lou has spoken about several times, which obviously we all want to see. So back to the New York Times article. Government officials said privately that there was no evidence of Russian or Chinese advanced technology in use, much less space traveling aliens in the information collected. So that's great. The first part is great. He spoke to sources who told him privately there's no evidence any of that was Russian or Chinese. But then, we don't know what it is. And he throws cold water. He goes, it's not Russian or Chinese, much less space traveling aliens. Of course, we don't know. And folks who take this seriously don't automatically say these are space traveling aliens. Other is fine. Non-human obviously has to be considered. Uh, so it's just a little veiled shot that is not needed. But if officials told him that those are his sources, then he's reporting his sources. But there are other sources who do not agree with that because I've spoken with some of them. Uh, the officials acknowledge that the government's, and I should clarify, I haven't spoken to people. No, I'll leave it the way it is. I'll leave that the way it is because there's a different definition of what constitutes, a government official. So I'll just say that. But the officials acknowledged that the government's failure to provide much explanation would fuel a wide range of theories, some more conspiratorial than others. Yeah, well, when you cannot rule out non-human, obviously, if you read the report, there are going to be a lot of theories, not necessarily conspiratorial. I would say common sense. Of course, everybody thinks, okay, they can't explain it. They say it's probably not Russia, China, or our own black technology. What does that leave? I mean, you know, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, all of those are should be on the table. So it's not conspiratorial. I see that as another jab, but nothing close to the worst part of this article. So he goes, while the unexplained sightings were mostly around military installations or operations, the report said it could be the result of collection bias, which I talked about earlier. That's where we have all of our sensors, our best sensors, or the presence of cutting edge sensors. Sorry, repeating myself. Some people believe any phenomenon exhibiting technology beyond the abilities of the United States needs deep study. Let's read that again. Some people believe any phenomenon exhibiting technology beyond the abilities of the United States needs deep study. Shouldn't that be all people? I mean, if there's phenomena exhibiting technology that we don't have, everybody's interested in figuring out what that is. Not just, well, maybe we'll figure it out next year, but in the meantime, who cares? I don't understand how you can write something like that with a serious face. Some people believe that, though. Yeah, I'm sure some people do, but who are these people? Skeptics believe most or all of the sightings, including videos recorded by cameras on military fighter jets, can be explained by tricks of optics or naturally occurring phenomena. Yeah, skeptics must think our government is a bunch of idiots. Skeptics, Seth Shostak. It's a computer glitch. Seth, they saw it with their own eyes. Just specifically the Tic Tac incident. So, screw the skeptics. I'm sorry. I'm not saying every case is unexplainable, but unless a lot of people are lying to us, and I do not think that's the case, whether it's Lou, Christopher Mellon, Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, all of those folks, and especially Lou, has spoken specifically about the 23-minute video where he said it's a game changer and it would be game over if people saw it. So, and also there was enough being shown to Rubio and Warner and Gillibrand that were getting language about UFOs in the National Defense Authorization Act. So obviously they're being shown things, and Heinrich was the most clear, saying, I don't think it's ours. So unless you think everybody is part of this conspiracy, it's really China, and it's a conspiracy to trick people and trick China into Russia and Russia into thinking we're studying UFOs. If you think that, yeah, I guess everybody's lying then, but to me, it makes no sense whatsoever. And I'm not even mentioning every name that has spoken out about this. Earlier this month, Avril D. Haines, the director of national intelligence, said the government needed to get better at collecting information about the unexplained phenomenon. No problem with that. The better technology we have, the better sensors, the better for everybody, Although I think the data they have right now is enough to convince probably everybody, if they were able to see it or access it, that this is not our tech and it's not Russia or China, and it's something intelligent and not of any government on this planet, any known government. I'll just say that. I'm trying to leave open the possibility that it's human, but not with no oversight. The what is it? The second space. I forget the wording. Richard Dolan talks about the breakaway civilization. I'm leaving open the possibilities for everything like that. And now the dog is going crazy. And I'll be back 1 second. Sorry about that. The dog loves the deliveries, Amazon especially. So we need to get better collecting information. That's fine. Ms. Haines said the primary focus remained on whether the phenomenon were aircraft from rival nations spying on the United States, but held open the possibility of otherworldly explanations. That's fine. Although if they really don't know if this is Russia or China at this point, that means our DOD is pathetic. I don't see it unless they're intentionally lying to us because they want to trick China or Russia. That's the skeptic argument. I don't believe that. And if I'm wrong, I think I said I will get out of the UFO business. I don't think I'm wrong. I don't think everybody I've spoken to and everybody that we've heard publicly speak is lying about this. So she's open to other worldly explanations. I'm like, that's great. You know, he included that quote. And then he's quoting from the National Cathedral event and says, I'm gonna actually go to that because I have that. Let me pull it up so you can listen. I will stop screening there and I will share my Chrome tab. This is from a few weeks ago. Our Future in Space. So that was that. And I'll put my earplug in so I can hear it when it ends. So this is what she said. Here, the question too. I lead in the question.
So, DNI Haines, on this topic of life out there, you issued an extraordinary preliminary assessment in June on unidentified aerial phenomena, is the new term of art. To summarize that report, you studied 144 reports from U.S. government sources. 80 had multiple sensors that had made the identifications. In 18 of these instances, observers, I'm quoting, reported unusual UAP flight characteristics. You sorted these into 5 different bins. The last call just other. I want to ask you to share with the audience your takeaway after the completion of that report and what your own view is as you look at the evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is that we don't understand everything that we're seeing, and that's probably not surprising to anybody in many respects. But it was a report that really, Congress asked us to produce a report that assessed what we saw as the threat, essentially, from unidentified aerial phenomena, and what our sort of best understanding was of the different reports that we had identified. And it stretched over from, I think, 2004 through to 2021. The different reports that you indicated, 144 of them. And we had different categories, as you said. So one of them was airborne clutter, another was natural, phenomenon, another was foreign adversaries, a fourth one was related to sort of US government or industry developmental programs, and then the fifth one was other. And that basically indicated that we were pretty sure we weren't going to be able to characterize every single one of these reports in the various categories that we'd identified because, frankly, we were not able to understand everything about it. And a large portion of that is based on the fact that we don't have a consistent way of reporting this information. We need to integrate, frankly, a lot of data that we get. We need to get better at collecting information that's useful to us from different sensors. that are available to us. And we have to deepen our analysis in these areas. And that's something that, frankly, probably also doesn't surprise you in the sense that that's how we typically approach our intelligence work. And the main issues that Congress and others have been concerned about are basically safety of flight concerns and counterintelligence issues. But of course, there's always the question of, is there something else that we simply do not understand that might come extraterrestrially?
So let me just ask a follow-up question.
By the way, I mean, she's obvious. To me, it's obvious she was uncomfortable saying that word and nervous because it's a big step for somebody like her to say, you never know. I mean, they could be ETs. I mean, I don't recall, and I might have downplayed this when I first heard it because I have my expectations high at sometimes, but you never know. It could be extraterrestrially. It's a big deal, I would love it if she said, or who knows, they could be on, they could be based on this planet and we just haven't noticed them until now because our sensors weren't as advanced as they were in the past. So we may share the planet with these folks and we may be below them on the food chain, but don't tell anybody that because that's kind of scary. I would never expect that, but it would be nice to hear something besides just extraterrestrial. I'll just finish the rest of what she said.
Experts and others have been concerned about are basically safety of flight concerns and counterintelligence issues. But of course, there's always the question of, is there something else that we simply do not understand that might come extraterrestrially?
So let me just ask a follow-up question.
Cookie, stop.
I'd love to hear your comments about what the tradecraft of UAP detection is. How we'll know what we know. How would we know if we were being observed, for example? That's, I find, a question people pose to me often in the weeks before this session.
It's a great question. That's why crash retrievals are so important. That ends the debate. If we have craft and we have non-humans or what appear to be non-humans inside and we have those bodies, the debate is over. They're observing us or they're interacting with us or they're visiting this planet, one or the other. But it was a good question.
What is the tradecraft?
Well, the tradecraft isn't any different for unidentified aerial phenomenon than it is for the rest of our work in the intelligence community, which is to say that
I think it is a little different. If you have objects that you cannot even catch if they take off at a high rate of speed, and there's no way to know what's inside unless they crash or you shoot one down. I think it's a little different than if you see a Russian MiG, and our F-18s are chasing it. So I think it's a little different, a lot different.
We do our work very much as I was indicating. We sort of, collect all of the information we can through a variety of different sensors. People are reporting things. We're picking up things technically. We're doing a variety of work to try to understand what it is that we're seeing. We are then taking other information that we have to determine, is it something that we know about in that area? Is there some other reporting that we might not normally think of as being connected? And then we do our analysis as we normally would to sort of say, okay, put it into context. What are the likely possible options? How do we characterize it, bucket it, and think about it? All of that is sort of the standard way in which you work. But it doesn't mean that that we are definitely going to be able to tell if we're being observed under the circumstances. I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways in which that might be revealed, but certainly we're working to make sure that we understand what we do see and what phenomenon is identified, and otherwise we're going to have to wait for Bill's science work, I think, to actually reveal some of these additional possibilities, not to mention some of the other people that I think you'll talk to later today.
Okay, so that's all she said on UAP. Her main comments, I don't remember if she said anything else, but that was it. And the big point was there's always the possibility that we're dealing with something extraterrestrially. And so back to the article in the New York Times by Julian Barnes, which I will pull up. And this is where I really don't understand his reporting here. Pentagon forms a group. Okay. So he's quoting Haines from what we just watched. He goes, the main issues, Haines says, the main issues that Congress and others have been concerned about are basically safety of flight concerns and counterintelligence issues, she said. But of course, there's always the question of, is there something else that we simply do not understand that might come extraterrestrially? And she stumbled on that word. Now, here's the classic Julian Barnes line after reading several of his articles, his last articles on UFOs. Ms. Haines' extraterrestrial remark was not necessarily referring to space aliens. First of all, just throw in non-human intelligence right there and make it serious instead of, it's obviously a salacious word, phrase, space aliens. Come on. Ms. Haynes's extraterrestrial remark was not necessarily referring to space aliens, but rather more pedestrian explanations such as meteors and solar flares that could impact flight safety issues. Okay, so where is he getting that from? First of all, this is not an op-ed. This is reporting. Where's the quote? Where's the quote from her or any source that says, by the way, Mr. Barnes, we know what she was talking about, and it's not extraterrestrial space aliens. No. She's talking about meteors and solar flares. That's what she's talking about, and those could impact flight safety issues. So she's talking about meteors or solar flares. And what I have to say about that is...
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious. That ball was on the line. Chalk flew up. It was clearly it. How can you possibly call that out? How many you can miss? That piece walking over, everyone knows it's in this whole stadium, and you call it out? Explain that to me, will you?
Exactly. So that's how I felt when I read that article. You cannot be serious. You cannot be serious. Please explain that to me. I'd love to get Julian Barnes to explain that to us, because it's one of the most ridiculous things I've read. Unless I'm missing something, maybe I'm missing something that I overlooked. But to me, it actually makes no sense whatsoever for him to say that. All right, I'll finish it. For years, a military intelligence official, Luis Elizondo, ran a little noticed group within the Pentagon. Nobody noticed them, because it was a closed program starting out. And he says, Barnes says the program within the Pentagon, little noticed. There's a little jab, called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. He says nothing about James Lutkatsky, who's a rocket scientist running the Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Applications Program, AWSAP. It says nothing about that. This is not 2017. We now know about AWSAP. The book has come out. Why did you not talk about AWSAP, Mr. Barnes? The Pentagon has said the program was shut down in 2012. AWSAP started in 2008, September, I believe, and went till December of 2010. And somewhere in there, ATIP started going to, whether or not it was an official program, it was working with military sightings of UFOs. And as far as we know, Lou has said, other people who have worked in the program, Eric Davis said to Stephen Greenstreet on the basement office, it was continuing to go. And it had a new name. At the time, we didn't know the name, but it was the UAP Task Force. It morphed into that. ATIP morphed into the UAP Task Force. And he says, backers of the program said its work continued. And I'm going to have to take a break here because the dog is about to go crazy. So just a heads up. I'm not even close to being done. Pentagon has said the program was shut down in 2012, but backers of the program said its work continued. In 2020, the Pentagon announced it had a new group the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force. The memo, there we go. Okay, I will be back. In the meantime, I will go to photos. All right, so I'm live, okay? Not live, but I'm recording, so just ignore me for now. Oh, all right. Hopefully all that audio came out. Let me go back to the article. The end of the article. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I forgot to put up my Patreon information as usual. What else is new? The memo released by Dr. Hicks said the task force would immediately transition to the new synchronization group. Woo! Like if this was 2017 and we had never heard of the New York Times article and the 3 videos, we'd all be so excited to hear about this. He writes, the Oversight Council will choose an acting director for the new group and issue guidance subject to Dr. Hicks's approval, she said. The new director will have the power to standardize incident reporting of UAP, ask to oversee the analysis of data on the unexplained sightings, and identify shortfalls in detection capabilities. So that's the article. Like I said, the one thing that stands out, Haines was only talking about meteors and solar flares, folks. Come on. Guy should be, I'm sorry, he should be embarrassed for writing that. Now, I will get to, for some reason, we have public comments via Twitter from Luis Elizondo on how he felt about this new office running out of the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, and I think also and security is the last part of that acronym, OUSDIS, I think. So why couldn't Barnes have put Luis Elizondo's response? I mean, Elizondo ran the program. You quoted, you mentioned him in your article. So this is what Lou said for those who missed it the other day. If I could find it. And I am struggling to find it. Darn it. Photos. No. That is not it. Oh, let me please find it. If not, I'll just read it. Share screen, window, photos, and it's not showing up. Darn it. See how this works. There we go. Get rid of me. So Lou wrote a couple of tweets after the report came out about this new Pentagon office. He says, important update before anyone gets too excited about the recent Pentagon announcement of the new UAP group, please consider the following. The Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence is precisely the same organization that has underplayed and tried to kill the UAP effort for years. USDI is an oversight organization and non-operational. Nowhere is there a requirement to provide unclassified findings to Congress or work with our international partners. Given that elements still exist in the Pentagon who are actively underplaying the significance of this topic, this is akin to giving an alcoholic the key and control to the liquor cabinet. If you want to maintain the UAP UFO secrecy, this is exactly how to do it. This is a direct and blatant attempt to circumvent and undermine the Senate. And then he tags Senator Gillibrand, Senator Rubio, Senator Ruben Gallego, Martin Heinrich, and Senator Heinrich, and Representative Tim Burchett and others. And also there's one more senator who's involved in this, and I forget the name offhand. Lou finishes up by saying, please, please, please contact your representatives and let them know this is unacceptable and not in the best interest of the American people. The USDI is the one single office that has continuously lied about this topic and persecuted whistleblowers. So I also have Chris Mellon's letter to Gallego related to this, but I'm going to follow up what Lou said from a source of mine who told me the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence is basically the front for the religious fundamentalists. Really great source. And I had that followed up today by another source who said the same exact thing. So they agree with that first source. And sorry about the background noise, folks. The religious fundamentalists. So basically he's talking about what everybody knows as the Collins Elite, a loosely organized group, not really officially. They don't have a name. They don't have jackets saying Collins Elite, but religious folks who think this is demonic and should not be studied. So before I get to Chris Mellon's letter to Gallego, which I do want to read, I did not read last time. I'm going to quote I'm not going to quote because it's from a source recently. And I want to tell you what this person said. I'm going to paraphrase. This is what I was in my headline. Is this going to be this office the Pentagon is putting forth? Is this going to be a permanent office? So this source said that they independently acquired the same information that Luis Elizondo did about the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. In other words, everything Lou said, this person agreed with. Hicks's order to create the new UAP office within the OUSDI is an ill-advised, premature move before Congress passes the NDAA. This AOI-MSG, this is the most important part, this new office will most likely be very temporary because the NDAA language for creating a new UAP program office somewhere will supersede the new office at the OUSDI and security. In other words, once again, the Gillibrand Amendment, if that language makes it in, it's going to supersede anything that the Pentagon is doing. That's what this person is saying. Most likely, it's going to be a temporary office. So if that's true, we can all, take a deep breath. And as far as the Gillibrand effort, her amendment, I'll close with that. I'll read what Christopher Mellon said. I think you guys are aware the Gillibrand Amendment is very strong, basically calls for going out in the field, investigating cases, look at health-related effects from UFOs, crash retrievals. Do we have any of that material? Are we back engineering it? Stuff that we really want to see. So Christopher Mellon, that kind of language was first brought out by Representative Ruben Gallego out of Arizona. And Christopher Mellon took the time to write him a letter. And I want to read from that letter. Okay. So here we go. So it's from Christopher Mellon's website. He says, "Dear Representative Gallego, I'm writing as an admirer and supporter who deeply shares your concerns about the UAP issue. In 2017, I was shocked to learn the U.S. Navy pilots had been encountering UAP in restricted airspace on a regular basis, and nobody was reporting it, much less doing anything about it. Senior DoD and intelligence officials, Congress, and the American public were all totally unaware." He was one of the people unaware too until he found, I don't know how he found Lou's office, but he found it and he was able to get read in after he got all the proper clearances and all the tickets. And Lou said he did not think Mellon would be able to get all of that stuff, but he got it pretty quickly. So that tells you something about Christopher Mellon. He has the right contacts to get what is needed to find out about whatever program he wants to find out about. And he did not know about that program, and it surprised him. He did not know about ATIP. So Mellon says, "I therefore worked with Lou Elizondo of the USDI staff to try to get this extraordinary information to Secretary Mattis. We knew that almost anyone below that level would likely shunt the issue aside and quash it if we revealed it to them. After a number of months, we realized we were not going to be able to inform Secretary Mattis. After some deliberation, we decided this was simply too important to ignore. Lou resigned from OSD in protest, and shortly thereafter, I delivered 2 authentic but unclassified DoD UAP videos to the New York Times. Another video I provided later accompanied an op-ed, and that was the other video that came later was the Go Fast. The first 2 were Tic Tac FLIR 1/FLIR 1 and the gimbal. I later provided that other video and an op-ed to the Washington Post. Since that time, Lou and I have done a History Channel docuseries, 60 Minutes, and innumerable interviews to help raise awareness. Lou is the one who's done innumerable interviews. Just too many to count right now. I was therefore, and Mellon has done some too, and not anywhere close to what Lou has. I was therefore thrilled when I heard you had offered an amendment to establish a permanent DoD focal point for the UAP issue. So Gallego came first, and then Gillibrand came later. My excitement grew further when I read the Gillibrand Amendment. As a former Senate Armed Services Committee, Senate Select Committee Intelligence, and OSD staffer, and one of the two people most responsible for alerting Congress, I hope that you will consider the following observations. There's no contradiction between your bill's language and Senator Gillibrand's amendment. The Gillibrand Amendment leaves it to the administration to decide where this new capability will reside. Regardless of the new location, many Gillibrand Amendment provisions are critical if we are to make headway understanding this phenomenon. The Gillibrand Amendment authorizes already appropriated space defense and intelligence funds to be used for UAP-related activities, so the funding is there. Hence, while OSD continues ineffectually shuffling paper as they have been for years, action-oriented organizations with funding, contracting authority, and technical expertise can begin working. Is the OSD staff going to identify the most telling UAP signatures for DoD and the intelligence community systems to search for? Clearly not. That expertise resides in organizations like NRO and the SSDP. I looked that up before. Google it, SSDP. You'll see it's space related. I think it's satellite space related. This authority gives DoD and its components much needed flexibility so they don't have to wait another year to get moving. So the Gillibrand Amendment also requires the development and implementation of a plan for collection and analysis. The current approach is equivalent to saying, let's monitor Chinese weapons development by ensuring any random detection of Chinese missiles or aircraft is duly reported. That's obviously a passive, ineffectual approach. At a minimum, Congress should require any successor to the UAP task force to develop the science and collection and analysis plans called for by the Gillibrand Amendment. That simply needs to be done. The Gillibrand Amendment would maintain the requirement for unclassified UAP reporting, a huge plus for transparency and accountability. It would be shameful to retreat from the recent progress that has been made in providing sunlight and transparency for the taxpayer. Visibility ensures accountability. The Gillibrand Amendment builds bridges to the scientific community. This is a win-win for science and the DoD. It directs the UAP task force or its successor to examine closely related technical issues such as non-combustion propulsion and the physical effects that can result from close proximity exposure to UAP. These efforts can contribute substantially to our understanding of the phenomenon. And by the way, as I said the other day, if they look into health-related effects, they're going to encounter some of the other weird parts of what it means to come close to the phenomenon. Anybody who comes close to the phenomenon, not anybody, but a lot of people have these side effects. And whether it's the hitchhiker effect, poltergeist stuff, people, things people don't want to talk about, it happens. So not only do some of these people get sick, but then they have a lot of paranormal activity going on around them. So if they're investigating reports, that stuff will come up. We need to study that stuff. I have no doubt it's connected. We need to study it if we want to understand what the heck is going on with UFOs, because it's not just simply studying propulsion and, even finding out who's inside is not going to get us the answers we seek, in my opinion. So in conclusion, he writes, as a former OSD staffer myself, I'm shocked that the Deputy Secretary of Defense would assign the UAP function to an oversight staff with no UAP funding or line authority, contracting, command, or technical capabilities. Indeed, the inability of USDI to engage effectively on the UAP issue is why so little has changed or been accomplished since 2004. However, this is a great opportunity for you, Senator Gallego, to lead, to incorporate the best of the Gillibrand Amendment and gather the Senate behind you with legislation that can ensure genuine progress and possibly an enormous breakthrough in the months and years ahead. Many thanks for your leadership and your consideration of my views. Please do not hesitate to contact me at any time. Sincerely and respectfully, Christopher Mellon. So Douglas Dean Johnson said that Gallego will be involved in negotiating the language between the Senate and the House. So he's really important. I hope most of that language makes it into the final bill. And the final bill, let me just talk about the Gillibrand Amendment, just touch on it for some folks who don't know what was in there and why we were so excited. So basically, it was co-sponsored by Senator Lindsey Graham, Roy Blunt, Marco Rubio. Blunt was the name I couldn't remember before. Marco Rubio, and those are all Republicans, and then Democrat Martin Heinrich. And excuse me as I just scroll down. And just one thing, Lou has said recently that things are imminent, and people are like, "Oh my God, imminent! Full disclosure." No, I don't think he means that. He just thinks things are going to ramp up. Conversation is going to take it to the next level. We're going to get an office, hopefully, in theory, if everything goes the way we want it to, that's going to study these UFOs. That doesn't mean that we don't think that there's data that's already been collected. Of course, I believe that. And I think there are certain people that know a hell of a lot more than what we do. And there's people in the middle that know more. I think it goes in stages. Folks in the special access programs who have been studying this for a very long time have a decent idea of some of what we're dealing with. I don't know if they know intent. So that doesn't, so I just want to, address people who say, "Oh, you're just content with what's going on now." No, I'm not. I just know that we're not a large enough constituency as far as UFO Twitter and all the folks who are passionate about the subject to make a difference with phone calls. I don't think we're at that level yet. We will be one day. I fully believe that, but we're not, I don't think we're close to that. So Gillibrand is one of several senators. I think Angus King and Cotton sit on the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence. Why is that important for Gillibrand specifically? Since she made the amendment. Well, I will show you why if I can pull up my photos. I'm sorry. Let's see. It is, I'll read one of the, here we go. I can share this. So remember, Gillibrand was part of the two in Senate. She's on two of the Senate Intelligence Committees. And this was from Frank Milburn. He pulled this. I think it's probably from it's an email list. Jack Sarfati has an email list, and I think this is what this is what that is from. So Eric Davis wrote, "Those craft are off-world, as I've told two Senate committees, staff, and DoD agencies." That's not my opinion, but that's where the physics and the facts lead. So he briefed those committees, and as Christopher Mellon spoke about on CNN, the subject of crash retrievals came up. That's why I believe, and maybe other people spoke to them about crash retrievals, but Eric is the point man for that. And that's why that came up. I think that's why that language is in the Gillibrand Amendment. And I want to get back to just touching on some of what the Gillibrand Amendment says, why we're so excited about it. I covered most of it. There's just a couple more things. And it's now called the Anomaly Surveillance Tracking and Resolution Office, ASTRO. They added in the tracking part, so we have a nice acronym. And in her amendment, she goes, "We may be dealing with balloons, drones, and the unknown." And it includes reporting incidents and adverse physiological effects. Also includes, we talk about UFOs going on the water, USOs, unidentified submersible objects. Includes coordinating with agencies, including the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So, NOAA would be involved. And no later than October 31st, 2022, this office. So no later than October 31st, 2022, and annually thereafter until October 31st, 2026, the director in consultation with the Secretary, shall submit to the appropriate committees of Congress a report on UAP. I think she means the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense together. Each report shall be submitted in unclassified form, but may include a classified annex. So that's why we get to see some of it. Hopefully it's going to be more meaty than the 9 pages we had in June. Most important part, they will conduct field investigations of incidents involving UAP. Go out and talk to the witnesses, see if they were injured, see if they have other experiences related to their close encounters, which they will. It's going to come up. They will be calling for the testing of materials. This is all in the Gillibrand Amendment. Testing of materials and development of theoretical models to better understand and explain UAP. An update on any efforts to capture or exploit discovered UFOs, crash retrievals. An assessment of any health-related effects for individuals who have encountered UFOs. UFOs associated with military nuclear assets, including strategic nuclear weapons and nuclear-powered ships and submarines. She wants to know instances in which data was not shared. If it wasn't shared because of classification restrictions or on the data or for any other reason. In other words, we went to Boeing or we went to Lockheed today and we were told they have materials from a crashed UFO, and they said we didn't have the proper need to know. So you need to know that, and we need to figure out how to get in there because it's a government paid for program. And right now we have no oversight. And she has mentioned how no oversight is not acceptable. How can it be acceptable to anybody, a senator, a congressman, a president, to not have oversight on something? Nope, sorry, it's only a small amount of people, and you're not on that list. Either is the president. Sorry. I can't see any politician being okay with that, especially somebody who's sharp. Senator Gillibrand strikes me as somebody who's sharp, and this language, and her staffers, Christopher Mellon said she has some really good staffers. So her staffers probably were the ones who were involved when the briefing took place. I was told they took very copious notes. So I'm saying if they go into the field and interview witnesses who claim to see orbs or beings, how are they going to classify that information? I'll be very curious to see. Is that going to be classified? We can't see it. I don't see why. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Billy Cox wrote a great article, which I need to link to. And he said Gillibrand's language is enjoying critically important white man sponsorship. And a lot of people said, why is he saying that? Well, you look at the Senate and the makeup of the Senate, things are changing, but it's still dominated by older white men. He's enjoying Gillibrand Amendment is enjoying critically important white man sponsorship from Lindsey Graham, Blunt, Rubio, Heinrich. Should this overdue blueprint for accountability known as SA 47337 become law, look for our unelected, as yet unnamed, and likely corporate guardians of the status quo to make a run for the vomitoria. Their bête noire, which is something they don't like, will be a legislative intention known as ASTRO, the Anomaly Surveillance Tracking and Resolution Office. He said ASTRO, but I added in the T because it changed since he wrote this. ASTRO's unprecedented authority is guaranteed to piss off more than a few turf-obsessed barons of existing bureaucracies, both military and civilian. It's even looking like the squishy Air Force will have to strap on a happy face. And that's Billy. You need to read his articles. He's underappreciated. He doesn't promote his own stuff, so people don't know about it. He's worse than I am. When it comes to me promoting my Patreon and PayPal and that stuff, I'm really bad at it, and it hurts me. But I'm focused on this stuff. As much as I need money to pay bills, I focus on this stuff, but I have to push the other stuff too, unfortunately. Billy's favorite part of the Gillibrand Amendment, and I did not notice this the first time, he says, the Gillibrand Amendment wants them to figure out the intentions of UAP, UFOs. Is this where the clergy comes in, or geneticists? That's where we're going to, I think, go outside of the government. Another thing, the Gillibrand proposal this is from Billy Cox. The Gillibrand proposal would also enlist the expertise of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Aeronautics. obviously missing something. The American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, their expertise will be enlisted. And Billy says that will call bullshit on the United States Air Force's decision to bail on UFO research for lack of compelling evidence. That's back when Blue Book was killed because of Condon, the Condon Committee. So that group, that was the AIAA, they called bullshit on the Air Force back then. I did not know that. And now they're going to be working with the new office, and they're going to be relied upon with their expertise, which is a great shot to the Air Force, who is still very quiet on this. You know, they updated their efforts of reporting. I think the Navy did it in 2019, so the pilots could report UFO activity that they've encountered. I think the Air Force did it in November, I think, or September of 2020, I think it said in the 180-day report. The SCU is involved, as Billy noticed. That's featuring Rich Hoffman and Robert Powell and a lot of other really good folks. I'm trying to think of the SCU's, what it stands for, the Coalition to Study Ufology, and I'm not getting that right. So that's great. They're involved, but PsyCop, which is a group of debunkers, which Randy, the amazing Randy, used to be a part of, they're not anywhere to be found. So see ya, debunkers. We have no need for that. They're trying to tell people are like, well, we need skeptics. Yeah, we need skeptics. We don't need debunkers. Billy says the pushback will come from vested interests to whom exposure could spell existential peril. And that's when we'll find out if Astro is real. That's the summary. We got a long way to go. Even if we get all the language from Astro into the NDAA and it gets in there and everything we want stays, we have still a very long way to go. But it's a start. And unless we have access to all of the historical data, which Eric Davis and Jeremy Corbell have spoken about, exists in a data warehouse. And we're not talking about the OSAP data warehouse that Valet was a part of. We're talking about something different. Unless we get access to that data, in the meantime, we're basically starting over. That's kind of what we're doing. But we need to see what's been collected and not shown to us. You know, Lou said that there are people in the Pentagon, and I think other folks have said, yeah, there are groups in the Pentagon agencies that say, we have UFO data, but nobody came and asked us for it. So that's unacceptable. So it's a great time for folks involved in UFOs. I never thought we'd get anywhere close to this. Started in 2017, thanks to Tom DeLonge providing a landing spot for Lou and Chris and other people. And now they're working behind the scenes, Lou and Chris, working their butts off to try to get our representatives educated on the subject. And I really have nothing negative to say right now. We still have a long way to go. We've made progress. Long, long way to go. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as Lewis said. So hopefully you guys like this. Did an hour. Like I said, my one source thinks that new office, the Pentagon office, will not exist very long. Hopefully they're right. Hopefully they just disband and the Gillibrand effort takes center stage and we go from there. So everybody have a good night. And I don't know when I'll do a video again, but probably soon. Thanks for listening. Oh, before I go, see, I forgot to do it all the time. If you want to support this effort, first of all, that's my blog and that's me on Twitter, which I do a lot of work on Twitter. If you want to support the effort, that's my PayPal. Venmo, which is preferred because Venmo does not take a percentage. And then Patreon, which I have not received many Patreon new folks in a while. If you want to contribute to that, if you like this, and the Twitter and the blog, which I'm working to finish the YouTube interview I did with Colin Kelleher and Knapp, and I also have transcripts from other shows they did, and it's taken me forever. So, yeah. Hopefully you guys like all of that. And until next time, I will see you soon.